Greetings, everyone. I'm Corey Gooker, coordinator for the Northern Rockies Fire Science Network. And on behalf of our team and our partners, I want to welcome you to today's webinar, Biophysical Settings Review in the Northern Rockies, which will introduce the Landfire Biophysical Settings Review Process, describe how it works, demonstrate its importance, and potentially convince you to involve yourself in the process. Before I turn things over to our presenters, I want to run through just a couple of webinar housekeeping items. At any time during the webinar, you can ask questions of me or our presenters by typing them into the questions pane of the control panel located at the right-hand side of your screen. Following the presentation, I will field the questions that you've typed in. And whatever you do in your control panel will not affect the presentation, so feel free to type a test message or test your audio at any time during this webinar. The webinar is also being recorded and will be available on the Northern Rockies Fire Science Network website soon after the conclusion of this live webinar. Today, we are joined by Jim Smith, the Nature Conservancy Project Lead for Landfire, located in Florida, and Jeannie Patton, the Nature Conservancy Communications Lead for Landfire, located in Colorado. Welcome, Jim and Jeannie, and I'll let you take things away, Jeannie.
Thanks, Corey. Hi, welcome to the Landfire and Northern Rockies Fire Science webinar. I am Jeannie Patton, Communications Lead for the Nature Conservancy's Landfire team. And this is one of a series of webinars that we've been offering in partnership with the Fire Science Exchange Network that looks at Landfire's Biophysical Settings Review project. We record and post our webinars on Landfire's YouTube channel and publicize them through the Landfire Bulletin and postcards. The link to subscribe to those is on the last slide of this presentation. And as Corey says, the Northern Rockies Fire Science webinar will post the video as well. Your microphones are on mute, and keep your chat boxes open. Write your questions and comments as we go along. If you have a clarifying question, we'll answer it while the webinar is underway. Otherwise, more general questions and comments will be handled at the end during our Q&A session. And today's presenter is Jim Smith. Many of you know Jim. He is the Nature Conservancy's Landfire Project Lead. Jim earned his BS in Timber Management, his Master's in Forest Biometrics, and PhD in Forest Biometrics and Remote Sensing. Jim was on the forestry faculty at Virginia Tech for 13 years, achieving the rank of associate professor, and has worked in the commercial sector as the Director of Forest Information Systems Development for Champion International Paper Company and International Paper Company. Jim's work has appeared in peer-reviewed journals, and among his many professional awards are the 2009 John Wesley Powell Award from the U.S. Geological Survey, Special Achievement in GIS Award from ESRI, the John I. Davidson Award for Practical Papers from the American Society of Photogrammetry, sorry Jim, and Remote Sensing, and a University Certificate of Teaching Excellence from Virginia Tech. In 2011, the International Spatial Accuracy Research Association named their Early Career Scientist Award the James L. Smith Medal. It's a pleasure to work with Jim as always. Jim, it's your show now.
Thanks, Jeannie, and thanks, Corey. And I'm going to hope that everyone can see the intro slide. I'd also like to thank all of you who are participating in this webinar. And I hope that, as Corey said, you find the information that I provide today useful, but also compelling in that you will participate in this little adventure that we have going on that we call the Biophysical Settings Review. And it's really important that that's the measure of success for this particular work, is who we can get involved and what kind of information we can get from you. So I hope that you will consider that when we're complete today. And we'll go on the websites that we talk about and we'll participate in this review. So that's our measure of success. And I want you to focus on the three words in the title here: what, why, and how. We'll come back to that in a couple of different times during the webinar. I have certain messages and You'll hear me repeat them many times, but they do relate to the what, the why, and the how, so we'll get started now. So I am the lead for the Nature Conservancy's Landfire team. You'll see the faces here, the position titles of the individuals, their backgrounds, as well as their contact information. And I will say that one of our missions as a Landfire team within the Nature Conservancy is to support you. So we hope that you will remember that, and that when you have questions about Landfire program products, not just biophysical settings, but any program product, need help understanding, need to know how to get the product, or maybe how to properly apply the product, understand the product well, we hope that you'll give us a call. Now, we are a small part of the overall Landfire team. We are a partner in the Landfire program with the fire organizations within the Department of the Interior and the U.S. Forest Service, who actually lead the project. So although we're a small part, we kind of at times are the part that reaches out to you. But remember that there are many more people involved besides the Nature Conservancy. So let's talk about today's agenda. Here's our first time we talk about how, what, and why. And so we're going to talk a bit about the models. That's the what. We're going to talk a little bit about the why, and that's how models are used, and then finish up about the how, which is how you can help us improve this important product. But before I delve into the biophysical settings review in detail, let's talk a little bit about Landfire in general. Landfire is basically a data or information production program. And as such, it was presented with design criteria that it follows in order to create those products, as any product is, whether it's a food product or a data product or anything else, we're given some sort of criteria to go by. The criteria that Landfire was handed in its charter back in 2004 by the Wild and Fire Leadership Council, I think can be succinctly summed up really in 4 words. It's a little bit cutesy to start them all with a C, and that's my doing, and I do apologize for that, but it helps me remember them. So let's go over those so that you're clear about them. One thing you need to think about is comprehensive, another is consistent, another is compatible, and finally current. Comprehensive refers to Landfire being an all lands project, and in fact the geographic scope of interest for Landfire has indeed expanded since Landfire first began to not only be the lower 48 states, Alaska and Hawaii, but now also the Pacific and Caribbean island territories such as Guam and Puerto Rico are now within Landfire's purview. So every product we make now must cover all lands. The products we make must also be consistent as possible, and that is across space as well as across time. Now, it's impossible to be 100% consistent if you have a spirit of innovation and improvement in the program. So we do try to improve the products over time. We do try to do as good as we can in every geography, but we also try to keep a consistent approach no matter where we are, no matter what version of the products that we're creating. Landfire products must be compatible, and that is, they must be basically ready to use the moment you download them. They must not need any geometric work, they must not need any legend work, any transformations or anything. They have to fit together spatially and thematically. An example of that would be the fact that we use the same natural vegetation legend for historic vegetation that we do for current vegetation. So Landfire products have to be compatible. And finally, Landfire products need to be as current as feasible. So the current cycle for Landfire is we update the landscape products that could potentially change over time every 2 years, and they're delivered 2 years later. So at the end of this calendar year, December 2016 or so, most of the U.S. products representing landscapes from 2014 should be available for download. So when you think about Landfire, you need to remember these because they basically define what you can and can't do with the product. So let's talk about the whole product suite. So first, and the most commonly known aspect of Landfire are the spatial data sets. There's 20-something of them. I don't know the exact number. The vast majority of them are 30-meter spatial resolution arc grids. Some are polygonal, but most are arc grids. All the data sets fit into some sort of bin or type of data category, and I listed them here. So we have some historic vegetation information, which is historic vegetation type, and that, just to be clear, is based on the ecological system classification developed by NatureServe. We are moving toward adding group products so that this is consistent with National Vegetation Classification and the requirements to use that classification. But our base system so far has been ecological systems. So we have historic vegetation, we also have current vegetation, but not only type as an ecological system, but also height class and cover percent. So we have some structure information in there as well. We have fire regime information, which is historic information about the frequency of fire, the fire regime group, the types of fires that occurred on the landscape. We have plot and event databases that can be downloaded. The plots are, as mentioned, they are geo-referenced plots. Those that the producers allow us to provide to the public are available for download. The event databases, which is data we collect about things that happen on the landscape, such as harvests or wildland fires, etc. Those are polygons that we collect, that we use in the mapping processes, and again, those that we can supply to the public are available for download. There are fire behavior spatial layers that are related to the surface fuel models as well as to canopy characteristics. A unique product for Landfire are national disturbance layers, which are annual disturbance layers as well as sometimes compiled disturbance layers over a period of years. So they would be 30-meter arc grids of things like harvest, wildfire, controlled burn, wind throw, insects, etc., whatever is a disturbance. And then we also have 3 pass-through spatial layers from the National Elevation Data Set so that all the layers someone needs to run a model like Farsight are available for download. So those are the spatial data sets, and I'm not going to spend a lot of time on those today. That's not the focus of this webinar. Focus of this webinar is biophysical settings, models, and descriptions. In red there, the second type of data product that Landfire creates. And we're going to spend a lot of time on that in a moment, so I'm not going to go any farther now. Then finally, we also have tools and support. Landfire has a small number of tools that were developed to help you either download and obtain the data or to help you utilize the data appropriately and maybe modify the data. And we also have some time dedicated to support. As I mentioned earlier, we will try to help you utilize the data as much as we can. So let me spend just a moment talking about the application scale of Landfire. Remember those 4 criteria, consistent, compatible, current, comprehensive, etc. They define the native application scale because within those design criteria, we have to use certain methods to create this data set. And that then results in an native application scale. Native application scale meaning at what size of geography should the Landfire products be applicable without doing significant local adjustment or modification. That's what native application scale means, and we would describe it as national, regional, and very large landscape. If you intend to use Landfire products on smaller areas, sub-large landscape areas, then you should expect to have to adjust those spatial layers or models to meet local needs, okay? So when you download Landfire data out of the box, this is what we would call the native application scale. So what do we mean by comprehensive and compatible and some of these other criteria? So I just wanted to put an example up here. This is the biophysical settings spatial data that Landfire provides. I believe this is Landfire 2012. Doesn't matter much with biophysical settings because it doesn't vary across versions so far. Because biophysical settings is Landfire's terminology for pre-European settlement conditions. So whenever you see BPS or biophysical settings, you need to be thinking about historic conditions, not current conditions. So we have this spatial data, 30-meter arc grid, a native application scale, national, regional, very large landscape. But every pixel in this map has a code in it, a BPS code, that links it to an existing biophysical setting model and description. So that's what we mean by comprehensive and compatible. Every acre is covered. All the different layers are linked together explicitly when that makes sense. And in this case, we have linked a description and a model to a biophysical setting raster value in a spatial layer. So let's talk about the biophysical settings. Now we're going to go into the details that we need to talk about what we need from all the people on the call and all your colleagues. So biophysical settings, as the name implies here, models and descriptions, is a two-part bundle. One part is a text description, which we'll look at in just a moment. The other part is an actual quantitative state and transition ecological model. These two things were created by me and my team and others traveling around the country, spending perhaps half our time on the road, going to meetings, setting up workshops, going to individuals' offices, and asking them to help us build these models. So these are expert-driven models. Somewhere in the neighborhood of 400 to 500 people helped us build these models back between 2005 and 2009 or so. And we delivered about 2,100 of these models during that period. About 11 or 1,200 of those were actually unique. There are some duplicate models where people said an existing model is okay, we'll just use that one. So we delivered somewhere in the neighborhood of 11 or 1,200 of these expert-driven text descriptions connected to a quantitative state and transition ecological model. So we originally captured the description information in an access tool that we call Model Tracker Database, or MTDB. And you can download this from the Landfire website if you wish. It is an access tool, and access can be a little finicky, but if this is how you like to view the data, certainly this is available to you. We also produce this data in the form of a PDF report that you can also download if you prefer to do it that way. You can't interact with a PDF, but you can interact with this. You will notice that there are tabs across the top. Those are all different types of information that we collected: relevant literature, disturbances, height cover summary, and succession classes, which we'll show more of in a moment. But this first page of the description gives you the sort of general information about this biophysical setting. Remember, pre-European settlement conditions. So it tells you about the site, what kind of descriptive information about the vegetation, what was the disturbance like pre-European settlement or native disturbance. It would allow you to put in certain species that you thought would be there, and these are NRCS plant codes that you'll see here with the common name next to them. It'll tell you who participated in the review and the creation of the particular model, where they apply. There's a lot of things here in the general category. I'm not going to go over height cover, disturbances, and relevant literature, but there's a lot of information on those tabs as well. But I am going to talk a little bit about the succession classes, because I think that's an important, unique feature of this. This is where we really start to delve into the ecological structure and function of a biophysical setting in its native condition. We allowed experts to create up to 5 succession states. We called them A, B, C, D, E, but that's just a convenience. Those succession states are defined by certain things like there'll be an age range for them. There'll be certain ranges of canopy closure and height classes, We allowed people to select indicator species for a succession class and then to describe that succession class, up to 5 of them in any particular BPS. So this is where we get some really detailed information about, again, the structure and function of a biophysical setting. Now, what about the state and transition model? These were originally developed in a software platform called VDDT, or Vegetation Dynamics Development Tool, which has evolved through a couple of steps into something now called STSIM. It's the same basic platform, but it has undergone some really significant evolution into STSIM with a lot more functionality and user friendliness. But these are actual models. This is a graphic display of the overall models. You see 5 boxes here, and though each box represents one of those succession states that we allowed people to create. You'll see here the definition of the age range. A is 0 to 5 time steps. It's an early development stage, and it has all structures. Basically, it doesn't have a specific structure. So these are the succession states. Generally, A is a regen stage. B and C generally are mid stages within the biophysical setting, and then D and E are generally, when they exist, late stages. Then you see we have open structures and we have closed structures. And the definitions of these and the specific numbers that connect this to open and closed and late and mid and early are in the description that we showed you earlier. It's explicitly connected to that description. And in fact, I'm going to show you here that right now, you see these green numbers, these green values. This green value here means that information was not entered by an expert. It was actually went and grabbed from the model software and inserted into this spot in the description. So we maintain this connection between the model and the description. So the boxes are connected by blue lines, which are disturbances like fire, insect disease, native grazing, wind throw, etc., or by green lines, which are the succession pathways. Each blue line would have associated with it some type of disturbance, the direction of that disturbance, where does it take you if it occurs, and the probability of that disturbance. So there's several parameters. You can see this model has many blue lines and has a few green lines, which represent how patches move across how patches change on the landscape due to succession or disturbance. And there are quantitative numbers behind each one of these lines. Okay, so that's the state and transition model that we have created. We created about 1,100 unique ones. Now, how do we use this model? Why do we develop a quantitative model? Well, it's basically we needed to create a reference condition for certain calculations within Landfire, but it also helped us understand the fire dynamics or the disturbance dynamics on the landscape that we could input into simulation models. So we took those final models that the experts created. The experts ran the models 10 times for 1,000 patches for 1,000 years to generate what's often called natural range of variability estimates, or what I might call reference conditions. So we started off with a uniform distribution, and then over time, time step 10, 50, and 1,000, the distribution changes from uniform to this. So this becomes our estimate of the natural range of variability, or the reference conditions for that biophysical setting. So those are the main components of the BPS model. So where do you find these models? Well, if you go to the landfire.gov website, what we might call the mothership, and if you look under the vegetation bin, under the vegetation tab, you will see a vegetation dynamics link. If you click that link, you'll get this page where we've described how the models were made, what are the components of the models, just giving you some background information on the models. If you click this red button here, you will actually be taken to another web page where you can find these particular models. And there's different pieces of information or forms of information that you can download. This table up here shows you compiled databases. So what you'll see here is the master STSIM model database. Remember, we created these models in VDDT, but now we have this software product called STSIM. So we've moved the models to STSIM and created a national database of all models that you can download. You can also download the Access database that I mentioned for the lower 48 and Hawaii. The model tracker database here, that would be all models in the lower 48 and Hawaii. And then there's a separate link for Alaska, because Alaska has some distinct description components, so it's a different database structure, so it actually has a separate link to do Alaska. Okay, so that's to get national compiled databases. If you want an individual map zone, say map zone 10 or 19 up here in the Northern Rockies, you could go to this map, click on that map zone, and download the model tracker information in PDF form or the VDDT model. So both of those are available to you to download. Now, you don't have to do this to participate in the BPS review, and we're going to show you why you don't have to do this in a moment. But this is where you would go get the models if you wanted them. So we've talked about the what. I want to talk about the why. And the why basically is because these models are used extensively not only by Landfire, but by many other organizations. So creating a quality product, something that people use, is important, not just to Landfire, but also to other groups. So let's talk first about how we use them internally. So these biophysical settings models and descriptions are really the fundamental source for ecological information for biophysical settings mapping. So how did we map biophysical settings? Well, we went and read the descriptions, and we used other data sets such as GLO data or other data sets that were available to try to map pre-European settlement vegetation patterns. But there was information within the biophysical settings models and descriptions that really helped drive this mapping process. And then once we get that, those maps help create the structure that we use for estimating vegetation departure and vegetation condition class. So those are important internal resources for products. The models are also the source of Landfire's fire regime attribute information. These are attributes to the biophysical settings model spatial layer, such as things like historic fire return intervals for mixed replacement and low severity fire, fire severity distributions, what percent of fires were replacement, mixed or low severity, what was the fire regime group for this biophysical setting, etc. Those came from the models after the original version of Landfire, which we call Landfire National. All the recent versions use model information as these attributes. Biophysical settings information is also used as one component of the fire behavior fuel model rule set. Landfire creates surface fuel models using rules that were developed by regional or local experts. And one potential component of that rule set is biophysical setting. They don't use it every time, but it is one of the things that they could use if they wanted to define a fire behavior fuel model. And then finally, of course, as I mentioned a moment ago, we use the model portion to define or create pre-European settlement succession class percentages to create reference conditions for departure calculations. So these models are very important to the Landfire program. But Landfire products have also been used extensively basically across the nation in many, many different ways. Fire, non-fire, all products probably have been used by somebody to do something. And one way we illustrate that is through this web map that we call WHAM, or Web Hosted Applications Map. The URL for that map is below. It's maps.tnc.org/landfire. We do host this map on the TNC servers rather than on the landfire.gov server. And we have selected a set of Landfire applications that are geographically diverse, but also sort of thematically diverse. This does not represent all the applications of Landfire data that we're aware of. And certainly not all of these balloons used biophysical settings models or descriptions, but remember, all these data sets really have some explicit link, whether you can see it or not. On the surface, it is there. If you want to see a Landfire application, you can zoom in on a particular area if you want. I've just zoomed in on Northern Rockies for this group. And I've clicked on one balloon, this balloon here, that is located in Missoula, to show you what it would look like if you wanted to see more about Landfire applications. This particular application describes how the staff that were working on the Fire Effects Information System, FEIS, mine Landfire biophysical settings model or description information to integrate into the FEIS system. So this is just one example. There are a lot of them. The biophysical settings models have been used across the country in a lot of different ways, aside from the fact that they help drive other products. The models themselves have been applied quite a lot across the entire country. So I hope you'll go to this map and you'll find some balloon that you're interested in and click on it and see what has happened in that area. And keep in mind, these are not all the applications of Landfire data. These are just a select few that we thought people might find interesting. So I would consider that to set up the why of the review. Those models are used. They are important to not only Landfire but to external users as well. So why are we reviewing them? Well, as I said earlier, we delivered more than 2,000 models, but there's really only 1,100 or so that are really unique models. So we wanted to make that clear, reduce the confusion that people have over the model suite, make sure that duplications were identified and were well established and could be known by any user that was using the model. So we wanted to review the BPS to reduce duplication. We also know probably better than anyone, because we helped develop all these models, that there are errors, there are blunders in here, there are problems that need to be fixed. Not just typos, but inconsistencies between models, sometimes inconsistencies within a model, just general errors that we needed to find and we needed to fix. Maybe most importantly, we know it's been, what now, 7 to 9, 10 years since these models were originally developed. There's a lot of new science that has occurred in those last decade. There's a lot of new people who might be interested in contributing to this. We want that information. We believe that information will contribute to improving the quality and usability of the models and descriptions. 10 years is a long time, and we want to get that information and get it into the models. So aside from just correcting problems, we want to improve the model suite itself. This review also gives us a potential to do two important things, one of which is to create a more useful delivery system. We think it's a little clunky. We'd like it to be more useful for you, where you could search for models that had particular criteria or from particular regions a little more effectively than just downloading the whole nation or an entire map zone. We also are using this as a way to encourage people to move from VDDT to STSIM, because there is an increased power, there is a more effective functionality for you in the newer versions of this software. And as long as we keep the models only in VDDT, we're not encouraging people to move. So this review, we think, will help us move along the process of moving people to STSIM. So we want to improve the models, make them more effective and more useful. And I'll be honest and tell you that it would be easier for us if we just did the model review ourselves. If we just took a year off from all our other Landfire tasks and just sat down and did the model review ourselves. That would be easier, but it's not our philosophy. Our philosophy is it takes people like you to make these models better. We need what you know to be incorporated into the models, which will make them more effective and more usable. So we're actually doing this the hard way. We're traveling around again, we're holding webinars, we're collecting as much information as we can from as many people as we can to try to sift through, see what needs to be done to all these models to make them better for you and for the Landfire program. So here's the how. We've talked about the what, we've talked about the why, now let's talk about the how. So here's the Biophysical Settings review process. We've cleaned the BPS list by identifying and noting duplicates. That will be clear to you. We did that over the past year or so. We posted those documents, the final documents for review, on a dedicated BPS review website that you can find. There's the URL right there. Easy, landfirereview.org. You can download documents that you're interested in Word form. You can go get the models if you wish. You can review the Word document or the model, or both if you wish. We set this up because we thought we would get more contributions if we allowed this for you to do it at your leisure, in your location, no travel required. You don't have to spend a whole day at a meeting. You could do it as you saw fit within your particular schedule. However, we are willing to support you through webinars, through some hands-on training and support. If there's a significant group of you that want to get together and review as a group, we will try to come and help you on site, or at least help you remotely. But the basic information that you need to do a biophysical settings review is on this website. So if you go to landfirereview.org, this is what the home page looks like. Excuse me, this is not the home page, this is the review page. See, the review tab is actually highlighted here. So once you get to this spot, you can watch a short video overview, again, give you a little bit of instruction and context. You find some other resources here on the web page. On the right sidebar, you'll find some other things. But if you're ready to go for a BPS description, you can go to number 2 here, click this, and you will get to this particular looking environment, where you will see a spreadsheet within a window on your web page. You can sort this spreadsheet or filter this spreadsheet by biophysical setting name, by the geography, by the vegetation, general vegetation type, or by the fire regime group. And once you've found a BPS you're interested in, you can click on a link and you will be prompted to save a document or documents, if you do more than one, to your local laptop, to your local computer, in Word format, that you can now review. And we would ask you to track your changes as you make these reviews. And there are instructions right here in blue at the top of every document that will sort of lead you through the process, tell you what we'd like you to do, what we think is most important, but we'll accept any comment that you want. Anything you have, we will take it. So that's the Word document. As you page down, you will see the guts of the model, description itself, which again is open for your review. And then importantly, what we've also done is taken all the model parameters. Remember all those numbers I talked about in the model with the green lines and the blue lines? We took those out of the model and we've inserted them into the document. So if you don't want to download the modeling software, run the model, see what the actual parameters are, you can review the parameters, what we've set for fire return intervals or insect and disease infestations or length of a succession class or whatever. You can find them in here and you can tell us what you think within this document. So this is the how. Get this document, review it for us, and send it back. So now take-home messages. Remember the what, why, and how. What? Landfire biophysical setting has 3 parts: spatial data description, a description in text, as well as a quantitative state and transition models, all explicitly linked. While we're not focusing on the BPS spatial data in this review, we will take comments on the BPS spatial data during this process. They do have some linkages, so we want to hear where you think the BPS spatial data needs to be modified or where there are issues with it. We will take those comments back to the Landfire program, but we're not handling that revision. But we may be involved in the future. Our focus will be on the descriptions and the models. So that's the what. The why, again, Landfire BPS models have been extensively used not only by Landfire, but also by a lot of other external users. And the how, this Landfire Biophysical Settings review website will give you everything you need to conduct a review. But remember that we are also there to help you do this review. If you have any questions or concerns, or if you're confused, we'd be happy to go in there and hold your hand or whatever you need to try to make this happen, because we believe this is a critical task that we've been given, and we want to do it as thoroughly as possible, and we want as many people as possible to participate. So Jeannie, I'm going to turn it over to you to talk about how you can connect.
Hi, thanks, Jim. This slide is self-explanatory, but I'm going to go over it with you anyway. The Landfire program home, that is the mothership, is landfire.gov. Conservation Gateway is the Nature Conservancy site where Landfire lives. The short address, nature.ly.landfire. We have a Twitter feed at Nature Landfire. Our YouTube channel is Landfire Video. If you just plug in Landfire, you'll get all kinds of stuff. So Landfire Video is where you need to be, and that's where all of our webinars are posted, in addition to about 70, I think now, maybe more, videos including tutorials and understanding Landfire, and as much work as we can put up there to make it easy access for you. Our bulletins and postcards come out every other month, alternating. We just sent out our May bulletin this morning. You need to opt in to get it. It's a MailChimp delivery service, so there's the URL to opt in. The easiest thing to remember, though, is you can get to any of this if you write me a note at landfire@tnc.org. I monitor that mailbox and will respond to you immediately if you have any questions about today's webinar or accessing any of these points or the BPS review. That last link, landfirereview.org, is where you go to do the BPS review. And again, landfire@tnc.org if you have any questions at all. So Jim, I'm going to turn this back over to you and see if we have any Q&A going on. Again, use your chat boxes if you have any questions or comments you want to direct to Jim.
And if you have questions about Landfire in general, I will try to answer them, not just about the BPS review. So the future plans or issues or whatever, don't hesitate to ask if you have any. And I do thank you all for your time.
Thanks, Jim. I have a couple of questions. I'm wondering, did you tell us the deadline for these reviews? And if there is a deadline for these reviews, how strict is it? You know, if I have something to contribute and I miss your deadline, should I scrap it, or can you still use my information?
Yeah, that's a good question, Corey. Thanks for asking it. And I did not, and I probably should have. But we are asking that people contribute those reviews by the 30th of June. Now that is a somewhat soft deadline, in that I would tell you that we will look at every review we get, no matter when we get it. But if we get it by 30 June, then we promise that we will consider those review comments for incorporation into the next delivered suite of biophysical settings, models, and description, which is due to the Landfire program very early in calendar year 17. So we've established this date so we'd have plenty of time to really look at the review information, get back to reviewers if we need to, resolve any conflicts, etc., in order to create another set of products for delivery in early 2017. But that being said, again, We will take any review anytime. We think this is a continuing process. So if you're a month late, send it anyway. That's fine. We will do our best to incorporate it. The longer you wait, however, the less likely it is it will be incorporated into the next delivered version. But we think we're going to be delivering versions more often in the future because of this review process. Hope that answers your question, Corey.
Yeah, I wish all of our deadlines were like that.
Yeah.
Another question I have is, who are you hoping to get these reviews from? I mean, do we have to consider ourselves an expert in the vegetation type? Do we need to have some level of experience managing it? I'm just curious where you want these reviews to come from.
Well, we'll certainly, and that's an interesting question. It is a bit of a dilemma. We've been told that by some people that we should only have academics participating, told by other people we should only have federal land managers participating. You know, it just depends on who you talk to, but we do not check qualifications. We look at the review, no matter who sent it in. We want everybody to participate. We will look at what you provide. We'll see what kind of supporting information that you have, say in the form of literature or studies that you can mention, that will impact what we do with the review that's received. But we don't check qualifications at the door. So if you're interested in dry mesic mixed conifer on the east slopes of the Cascades, we'll take your review, whether you have not in that. But we will weigh the supporting evidence you have for your review in order to determine what to do with it. So it is a dilemma at times. We try to weigh evidence, the preponderance of the evidence, in order to make changes. And we have run into a few conflicts between, that has happened. But we are not going to set qualification standards a priori that people need to participate in the review. We will take any review we receive from anybody that's interested to contribute.
Okay, no more questions out there, it doesn't look like. You must have done a sufficient job in explaining the process. Thanks, Jim.
Oh, you're welcome. Or everybody's asleep. Hopefully not.
I can't tell you that from here.
Okay. I do want to express my appreciation to all of you that participated and encourage you once again to contact any member of this team that you see on the screen there, or anyone on the Landfire program. You can go to helpdesk@landfire.gov or landfire@tnc.org and get to the programs at large. We would love to help you, to hear from you.
You are getting thanked from the audience, however, Jim.
Oh, well, that's nice. I appreciate that. They just like listening to my voice. It's probably strange to them.
I think they appreciated your cutesy descriptions of Landfire.
Okay. Okay. All right.
So, again, it looks like you guys are plenty accessible. Anyone who has questions, it looks like you can easily approach anyone in the Landfire group with those. Thanks again, Jim and Jeannie, for this presentation and explaining the process and how and who should be involved.
Thank you, Corey, and thank the Northern Rockies Fire Science Network. We appreciate it.
Anytime.
Yeah,
And
thanks, Corey. Thanks, everybody. Enjoy.
And for all the rest of you out there, I just want to make sure that you know that the Northern Rockies Fire Science Network is also accessible. If you have questions regarding this webinar or have ideas for future webinars, you can get a hold of me, email, phone me anytime. Thank you for your participation. Thank you again, Jim and Jeannie, for the information. Have a good rest of your day, everyone.
So long, everyone. Bye-bye.